I would say to presuming that you are getting into music for all of the right reasons, to keep heading down that path, trust your instinct, don't lose that yearn for learning. Always try to learn something new. That's one of the reasons why I started playing more bass and writing music. Just, I love drums, but there's a limitation to every instrument, how far you want to explore it. And so, just trust your instinct and stay true to yourself, and seek further education by whatever means, whether it's autodidactism or lessons, and work your ass off and do your best.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters Net podcast. I'm your host, Brian. And joining me today is a very special guest, Travis Orbin. How you doing, brother?
Howdy.
It's good to meet you. And I guess you came back from a tour not too long ago from Australia. How was that?
Australia was a bleary-eyed whirlwind because we had some issues entering the country, and as a result, we missed the first gig and a day to acclimate. So we actually played on the day that we arrived, and we played every subsequent day following. And if you know anything about traveling, touring in Australia, the cities are not close together. So that just exacerbated the already ridiculous jet lag we were experiencing. So, like I said, it was a very tired whirlwind of a time, but it was a fun experience regardless.
I would say, yeah, in terms of jet lag, because I know that when traveling to Europe on some vacations I've been to. Mm-hmm. I know what you mean, too. That first day, you just want to sleep, too, because I assume you can't really sleep well on planes.
I did what I could, but yeah, there's nothing that can prepare you for traveling literally across the world.
Did you play in all the major cities, like Melbourne and all those other ones?
Yeah, we did. We were supposed to play Adelaide. We missed that. We started in Melbourne, went to Canberra, then Sydney, and then the last one was Brisbane. So we played all of the major east and southern East Coast cities. I guess the only city we didn't play, other than the aforementioned, was Perth, because that's, on the West Coast.
I see. Did you guys get a chance to see the Outback at all? I guess when you're traveling between cities, or they keep you along the outer edges?
We drove from Melbourne to Canberra, so we saw quite a bit of the bush. And it's really pretty. The scenery doesn't change and extravagant a lot, but it's pretty regardless, very verdant.
I guess, do you still see signs like the bad fires they had a while back? Is that still kind of present there?
Honestly, no. I didn't see any evidence of those fires. No.
All right, that's really good to hear. And I would say I would like to get to Australia one of these days, but I think we want to get more to New Zealand, because are you a big Lord of the Rings fan by any chance?
I won't say massive. I mean, I've only seen the trilogy once, but I greatly enjoyed it. And I'm aware that was filmed in New Zealand.
I think we just want to just go there to kind of maybe reenact maybe some parts there just for fun. It was just me and my parents, that sort of thing. But that's at least another story at some point too. So stay tuned for that. So welcome to my podcast here, Travis. The way this one works is I just got some questions here, and I'm just going to ask these, and we get to know you more as an individual and as a drummer too. So you ready to roll?
I am ready. Fire away.
All right. Let's start with the first one. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you become a drummer?
Well, I guess I technically got my start 3 days after my 13th birthday. I was born 3 days before Christmas, and so as a combination birthday Christmas gift, I was given a Pearl export kit with 2 cymbals. So I guess that's when I like actually started playing. I just turned 13, but prior to that, I don't really have a distinct recollection of when I started having an interest in those sorts of things. It's always been this intrinsic uh, interest to make grooves, make momentum. Rhythm always fascinated me, and yeah, I remember like kind of aimlessly beating on desks in grade school, which would prompt me to get into trouble. But um, so yeah, I didn't go through the traditional pots and pans phase. I went through the beating on desks phase, and then I heard the record "And Justice for All," the fourth Metallica record, and that was when I was like, okay, what is going on here? I started just mimicking, playing the drums, maybe from watching videos on MTV. I don't know, but so that started, and then I started to kind of beg my parents to, foster some sort of pursuit in this regard. I don't know if like I wanted a drum set, but I didn't know if there was something else that I could do beforehand. And thankfully, they did foster it. They got me a practice pad and a pair of sticks, and I would play on that to no end. And then eventually, I got this. They got me this really cheap electronic kit, and it was really limited. Like the polyphony count was very limited. I couldn't really do much with it, but I would still play on it a lot and make up little arrangements, song arrangements and such. And then so this whole phase lasted for probably about, I don't know, 2 or 3 years until they finally gave in, acquiesced, and got me the Pearl kit.
No, more like we surrender. All right, fine. You could have your
Yeah,
drum set, that sort of thing.
exactly.
I guess which song on the Injustice for All album really kind of spoke to you?
It was the whole record, man. And to this day, it's my favorite metal record. Um, yeah, I can't pick one. Of course, the song "One" it's very rhythmically based. The whole climax of the song is based around a rhythm, and so that was I don't know. I struggle to single out anything because it's just the record as a whole had it left such an impression on me. It's indelible.
Actually, I was trying Dyer's Eve last night too, just to kind of goof around on it. So I would say that one and Disposable Heroes were the hardest ones to play drums on, from like what Lars had played on it too. So, and I was actually talking with a friend a couple weeks ago, and like he's a real big Metallica fan too. So I was kind of telling him like list the top 4 Metallica albums, like which one was your favorite, and I guess which one was your least. And he did have Injustice for All kind of in the 1 and 2 category. I guess for the top, well, I shouldn't say top. For those first 4 albums, I guess how would you rank them? Would you say Injustice for All number 1, and then what would be like 2, 3, and 4?
I would go in exact descending order. Injustice for All, Master of Puppets, Ride of Lightning, Kill 'Em All.
All right, fair enough. Nobody seems to get any love for the Kill 'Em All album. I guess it was a bit more just thrashy. It wasn't really as dynamic as some of the later works.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
All right, fair enough. And it's funny too when you said like you're born 3 days before Christmas. And did you have any siblings? First off,
No, only child.
oh really? My sister was born before me, and when my mother was pregnant with me, I was born a few days after Christmas. So when I guess they were going to some sort of party, and my sister just said, "We're having the baby Jesus." So
That's quite a statement to utter.
yeah. Well, she was young too at the time, so
Yeah.
you can see why.
Kids
Can't
say
say the darndest things. So, but regardless, is your drum set nearby by any chance, or is it in a separate room?
No, it's in my studio outside. It's in an adjacent building.
Okay, I guess just walk us through what you got right now.
My kit that I play on,
Yeah.
it's I endorse Pearl drums, and I play Reference Pure, a 16 by 20 bass drum. I think it's an 8 by 12 rack tom, 16 by 16 floor tom. That's traditionally what I play. Sometimes I'll change it up. And then my snare, my kind of go-to workhorse snare, is a 6.5 by 14 reference brass. And so that's kind of like my default setup, if you will.
Did you say your brand of cymbals were they Zildjians?
Cymbals, yeah, I endorse Zildjian as well, and I have a wide array of cymbals. It entirely depends on the style of music that I'm playing, the vibe, the attitude. I guess I could give you another default kind of setup. I tend to go with starting from my left, a 20-inch K heavy ride, and then a 19-inch K thin dark crash. My usual 14-inch hi-hats it's like a custom pair that I came up with when I actually went to the factory when I first got endorsed back in 2014, and I picked these out. It's a 14-inch K Constantinople bottom as a top hat, and then a 14-inch K custom high definition bottom as the bottom. And then from there, it's either some sort of splash or a medium stack cymbal. And then transitioning to the right, it's either another splash or another stack cymbal. And then underneath of those is my 13-inch hi-hats. Usually I use the A new beats, and then the smaller crash, either a 19-inch K custom hybrid or an 18-inch K thin dark. And then I sometimes use two China cymbals. The first one is usually my 18-inch K custom. What is it called? K custom. It's the new one with all the holes in it. I forget.
I'm not too familiar with names either, but I just know.
They actually sent me the prototype when they were working on it, and it didn't even. All it had on it was prototype. It didn't have the name of it. I know it's the one with all the holes. And then underneath of that, I use a bigger China, a 19-inch K China.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was actually checking out your video before we got on here. It was the second Barricades at Night session, Grow in Fear. I guess you did part 2, and I guess you broke it up into 2 parts. Is this like your own sort of music, or is this like covers of other bands?
Primarily what I do, well, I guess I should say the majority of the content that is on my channel is session work. So I've been doing session work, being, an independent contractor. People hire me to play on their music, or in rare instances, labels will hire me, but it's usually people, regular musicians. I've been doing this for a little over 10 years now, and I work primarily out of my home studio, but I've worked out of other studios, wherever they want to hire me from. But and what I do is I write the parts, and then I film myself performing, tracking the parts. And then later on, when I'm given the final mix or master, I'll then sync that to my footage. And so what you see is the actual, like, me tracking the drum set parts or percussion or whatever.
Are they like the full songs, and then like it's just like here's one, and then you break it up into the separate session? Here's part 2. Is it kind of like that?
I've posted singles. I've posted like clips of 2 songs, 3 songs. Usually I ask them, the client, if you will, what they would prefer. And with the Barricades guys, I did exactly what I did the first time with the first session, which is I basically just split the album in half and posted, like you said, part 1 and part 2. So part 1 is like the first, 4, 5, 6 songs on the record, and then part 2 is the remaining half.
Oh, that's pretty sweet. Yeah, that's definitely a new way to take it, because most people who do like drum covers, it's normally just like one song. Normally it's just because it's copyrighted material, but these ones, it's from the actual musician. They're at least allowing you to put it on there too, so you're at least showing like, here's all the songs I played, and it's kind of like, here's a side A, and then here's a side B, like how it would be like with a vinyl record or something like that. So that's interesting.
Yeah, sometimes I can arrange them as such, and that is one one enticing aspect of what I do. Usually, I don't run into any copyright trouble. I have, though, strangely enough. I think there's one or two videos that are blocked. Um, I did a black metal record. It's like the only black metal music I ever played in my entire life. But um, it was called, geez, what is it called? Hold on, let me bring it up real quick. I can find it.
They wanted you to do like all the blast beats and stuff, the shrieking vocals in the background there.
Sort of, yeah. The vocals were a little different than the usual black metal fare, but yeah, there was some of that as well. So it was called. I'm having trouble because they also like changed the name at one point, I think.
No, really. I actually think I got a comment from somebody who was in a black metal band from like Puerto Rico, which was it was a bit odd, but I think it was because he commented on one of my drum covers from Nile. I don't know if you're familiar with that metal group.
Yeah. Geez, where is it?
Just play the Jeopardy music.
Called Amidst the Withering. And so I did basically the same thing that I did with the barricade stuff. I split it up into two parts, part one and part two. And yeah, both parts are blocked. I tried to dispute it. You know, I said, this is like the videos are my intellectual property and I played on this record and I have express permission from the people that composed the music to post it, to no avail. So yeah, that sucks. But one reason why I started doing these videos kind of echoes something that Mike Mangini talked about in an ancient interview. I don't know if it was in Modern Drummer or if I don't know, I saw it in some drum magazine somewhere, but he was talking about how it's a shame that he did not film a lot of the older stuff before, you know, cameras were so ubiquitous, but it's a shame he wasn't able to film some of that stuff because it's so deceiving, some of the things that he played. And that's why I did this. It's like some of the ways I play some of these shapes are pretty deceiving. And sometimes also the mixes don't turn out so hot because people try to mix it themselves or they can't find a competent engineer. So yeah, that's another reason why I do it. It's like, maybe you can't hear all the ghost notes, but here's proof that I did play them. And so, yeah, I try not to do, I dip my toe into the cover thing every now and then. And when I do, it's always an artist or a band that I greatly admire and has an impact on me in some way, shape, or form. But that's largely why I do not, because I know that I run a big risk of it being blocked or whatever. I don't care about it being. I don't even like have my channel monetized, so I don't care about that. But yeah, it would be a shame to put so much work into something and then have it removed. Which it has happened. I did a Dillinger Escape Plan medley. And I did one song from the first record, one song from the EP with Mike Patton, and one song from Miss Machine. And yeah, I posted like little fragments of it on my Instagram, which you can still view, but it's been removed completely from my YouTube channel, unfortunately.
I'm still glad you keep the audio on Instagram because I thought Instagram would be like, they'll allow you to keep the video. And I think that's also ties in with TikTok too. They'll allow you to keep the video, but they'll take the audio out. So really, you don't hear anything at all. So they'd still keep the audio in it too?
Yeah, the Dillinger post on my Instagram is the video and the audio is available. Yeah.
All right, that's pretty sweet. The one thing I did notice in the video before we jumped on here, I noticed you play a lot open-handed as compared to like cross-handed like this. Did you start off cross-handed and then work your way into open-handedness?
Yeah, I started on a totally righty conventional kit playing cross-handed, and then I first started flirting with open-handed playing a few years after I started because I had an interest in Dennis Chambers and Carter Beauford from the Dave Matthews Band, and both of those guys, Carter is totally open-handed and Dennis kind of switches back and forth seamlessly because he's Dennis. and so that prompted me to kind of explore that. And then I guess like maybe a little further into my playing career, 9 or 10 years, I started to flirt with leading with the left foot on the slate pedal of the bass drum.
That's pretty sweet. The other thing I did notice was your toms are actually at different spots. You got like the one's over here, and then the other one's kind of tucked over here too. It's not like how normal drummers they would have like two toms right here, and then maybe two floor toms going here. I guess what made you want to put the toms different spots? Was it just easier to kind of get to your cymbals then?
I This is going back to like 2003, 2004. I was in a pretty crazy technical heavy band, and we arrived to a gig at one point extremely late. I was like literally taking my drums out of the bags and putting them on stage, setting up to play. And on a whim, I just decided to play bass drum, snare drum, floor tom. And I really liked it, but I wanted to add something to promote more left hand movement. And so that basically, through a few years of evolution, resulted in what you see now. So that approach, combined with the interest in ambidexterity, developing my left side evenly with my right, and also employing that facility in a way that complements the music in some regard. Those two sort of general concepts merged and resulted in the drum set that you see.
That's sweet. And I know you talked about Dillinger Escape Plan. I actually felt bad because I found out about the group a little later in my life. Mm-hmm. But I was actually hearing on. Do you listen to Sirius XM, the liquid metal station, at all?
No, I don't.
No. Well, they were actually playing some of the songs, but it was actually the live version too. So I was listening to like 33% Burn was like one of their songs, and I'm just listening, and this is live too. So normally when you hear bands live, it's not. They try to get it as close as they can to like the original sound from the album.
Sure.
This one sounded. It sounded really amazing too. I mean, they were giving it their all out there too. So hats off to them too. But since you mentioned about it, would you consider the drummer from Dillinger Escape Plan to be your biggest influence, or do you have many others?
Oh no, I greatly enjoy those works. The drummer was Chris Penny, and then they went through a few other drummers. I greatly enjoy those records, but I would say I guess two biggest influences are probably Virgil Donati and Dennis Chambers, and then kind of lessening in importance, but each had their own impact in some way. I'd say David Garibaldi of Tower of Power was a big one for a bit. Vinnie Colaiuta, I absolutely love and adore. Mike Mangini, and then and obviously Lars. He was kind of like my introduction into wanting to be a drummer. I think the interest, was always there. He was just like the spark that hit the match. And yeah.
It's funny what you mentioned about Mangini, and you're actually the first one who would list Mangini as like an influence, because everybody's always gone with Mike Portnoy, because when he was Dream Theater's drummer for a good number of years, and then nobody really seemed to. They at least respected Mangini, but they never really like listed him as like an influence per se. So I don't know. It was like maybe they just liked Portnoy a little bit better or something. I guess is Portnoy another influence too, or?
Yeah, at some point Portnoy. Yeah, I like a couple of Dream Theater records. Change of Season. No, not Change of Seasons. Awake. What's the other one? Scenes from Memory Part 2. I
know my favorite was like the Octavarium album. I don't know if I'm ever pronouncing it right. So
like what is that one called? It was like they're Falling into Infinity. That one was really cool. But yeah, I knew about Mangini well before Dream Theater incorporated him. Yeah, I found out about him through Modern Drummer. I think I read an interview with him from, I think it was like 1998, and he was talking about, he was with Steve Vai at that point, and he was talking about he had a very, very comprehensive, measured academic response to every question, and that made an impression on me. I really appreciated his elaboration and his candor, and I'm trying to think. The first thing that I heard from him, it may have been a drum solo, actually. Um, yeah, I remember having in the early days of file sharing, I had I went rabid like everyone else, but I had this. Actually, I think I actually had the CD. I really can't remember. It was from a Montreal drum festival, and he did an open solo, and it just blew me away. But I'm trying to think of the first piece of music that I heard. It may have been this record that he only did once. Yeah, one song on the record, and the record is called Sluggo, and it's by the artist Mike Keneally and Beer for Dolphins. And
Beer for Dolphins.
yeah, that relationship was forged through. They were both in Steve Vai's touring band.
Okay.
And so, yeah, Mike Keneally had this like impossible song to play. He was actually writing it. He was composing it on the airplane, and there were like these layered polyrhythms, and they weren't designed for one person to play. But Mike Mangini saw him writing it, and I was like, I can play that. And then he like tapped it out on the airplane, and he was like, all right, you got the gig. And so that, yeah, the song is called Egg Zooming, which I actually did a cover of, and it's not blocked, thankfully, because that took a lot of work. But
thank God.
yeah, that may have been the first thing that I heard from him play. Before his association with Dream Theater, he didn't really have like a home base, like a band that he always played with. He was with Steve Vai for a number of years, but then he left and he became an associate professor at Berkeley. And then he he was an independent contractor like me. Whoever hired him to play on his records, that's where he went. And so, and he still did clinics and stuff. And he was, super respected and renowned in the drumming community, but he did not make the splash that he made when he joined Dream Theater, because that band is just, they're the biggest progressive band in the world.
It's always funny when musicians become like these. It makes sense when they become music teachers, because that's at least something they're at least known for. But they jump into like different subjects, for instance. I guess, did he ever say like what sort of subject he went into when teaching at Berkeley?
I think, I'm just going off of memory, I think the courses that he offered, I think they dealt more with just like mechanics, because he's kind of like an expert at that. Like he's done a lot of research and employed a lot of different teaching techniques in that regard to really like optimize your practice time. And so I think a lot of his course material was focused on that. But I could be wrong. I didn't go to Berkeley. I did take one private lesson with him though, when he was still at Berkeley. This was like late 2006, going into 2007. Drove up to Boston, and I think it was like a 2 or 3 hour lesson that I took with him, and it was great. He stressed counting to me, which was my big takeaway from it. But everything else was good. Like he said, my technique looked really, really nice, and to just keep going down the road that I'm journeying down.
And this was well before he joined Dream Theater too.
Oh yeah, like I said, he was still at Berkeley.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
He couldn't. He taught me in one of his. I don't know if it's like his main office or whatever it was, but he had 2 kits set up in there, and I think a practice pad. But yeah, it was well before. It was like he joined Dream Theater in 2010, 2011, so 4 or 5 years before that.
Well, I'm just trying to picture too, like when you learn he joins Dream Theater, you think like, oh my God, I had I had like lessons with this guy too. So I had to that's amazing too. Do you still have his contact info? You ever like reach out to him, like try to touch base again?
I do have an email, but it's pretty rare. Sometimes when I put out a solo record or something, I'll send it to him and email him, and I used to do that like every time I put something out, but I've put out a lot of music. I have like 19 releases, I think, at this point. And so I stopped hitting him up every single time that I released something.
Because he didn't, most of the time, like, didn't really respond too much, or was he tried to respond when he
He
found some
when
time?
Yeah, when he got the time, he would respond, which was completely flattering.
That's a good man right there. That's a very good man. So God bless you, Mike Mangini. So we do have a good number of questions here, but I guess let's jump into your YouTube channel since we've been talking about it a little bit. I guess when did you start it, and I guess what do you hope to achieve with it as you keep going forward?
I started it way back in 2006, I believe. I posted 3 videos. One was a drum solo. Another was a Jay-Z cover. And then the other was, I called it Groovin' Grooves from the Left Side. And it's when I was just starting to foster this like left side connection. And at the time, I was actually playing more of a conventional drum setup, but I utilized crisscrossing cable hi-hats. And so my left cable hat would activate the right hi-hat, and the right one would activate the left. And so if you were playing left, you could play completely left-handed lead, basically, left foot on the bass drum and left hand playing the hi-hat and vice versa. And so this video, the Groove and Grooves from the Left Side, was just this collection of grooves played entirely from, the left side. So those are my first 3 videos. And then I kind of posted sporadically for a number of years. And then I invested more into pro audio gear and got a pretty decent sounding setup. And then at that point, I was in a band called Sky Eats Airplane. And so I started posting my sort of interpretations of the material that I was playing with them live. And at the same time, I started doing this thing that I called Periphery play-alongs, which I like to say, the original drummer of Periphery. And I wrote a lot of the parts that comprise their debut record and some other sort of, I guess, B-side material or stuff that never like really made it onto a record, or later made it onto later records. But anyway, I started that series as well, and I started that was just simply to showcase the material that I had written, because it was later modified to better reflect their drummer, which makes sense. So I started doing that, and then I got my first. I did a couple sessions prior to the one that I posted, but the first session that I filmed from start to finish and then did the video sync and video audio sync, that was for an international act called Cyclamen, and that was in 2009. And so that was kind of like the start of all the the gamut of session material that I've done since then. And to answer your second question, I'm really not. I don't have an overarching goal for my YouTube channel. It's I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing all these years, just posting session work, posting my own solo material, whatever other ventures I get into. I post stuff that I've done with my band Darkest Hour as well. So it's basically whatever I want to do. And then occasionally, if I feel up to the risk, I'll do a cover. But like I said, that's quite rare.
I see. I was tempted to interrupt you when you said Sky Eats Airplane too, because I've actually had heard of the band. I think I listened to maybe a couple songs, but I never got committed into that group too. And I think same with like Darkest Hour.
Mm-hmm.
So now I feel kind of bad. Now I'm thinking like, oh man, I'm talking with the guy who's part of these groups, and I'm not being committed to him. I'm not a metalhead anymore. What's going on, man? So
no problem.
No, wait, that's pretty sweet actually. So I was going to ask, like, how did you get into Sky Eats Airplane? Did they just reach out to you and then just say like, hey, we need a drummer for this part? Or I guess how did it all work out?
I was in Periphery at the time, and I fell in love with their self-titled record, and their singer at the time, he was a Periphery fan, and I had sent him a Periphery T-shirt because I had also I oversaw all of the T-shirt sales. We had a little like big cartel store, and Misha, the guitarist of Periphery, was like, send this guy a T-shirt. He'll wear it in an interview or something, and we'll get huge. I was like, all right. So his name was Jerry. I sent Jerry a T-shirt, and that kind of open up a line of communication. And then a few months went by, and I saw a press release about their drummer. His name was Kenny. He had left the band, and I can't remember if I talked to Jerry first or I did a cover, but I did a cover of this song called Machines, which is like probably the hardest song on their self-titled record. And then I posted that, and I sent Jerry a link, and he was just blown away. He shared it with the rest of the band, and he was like, would you have any sort of interest in joining the band? Because he knew that I was in Periphery. I was committed, and he loved Periphery himself, as I said. And I was like, let me think about it. And so I took a few days and thought it over, and I was like, all right, I think, I want to jump ship, because I was really dissatisfied in Periphery. I felt like there was just not a strong sense of or a strong spirit of collaboration. And I was coming from a place where the bands I was in, the projects I was involved in, like I wrote everything with a person in the room or a couple people, and it was a team effort. And so it was draining to not have that in my life after 2 or 3 years. And so I told Jerry I was interested, and he said to do one more cover interpretation video for another song. And so I did that, and then the offer was extended to me.